Shalom, this is your host, Pastor Enoch Phiri. Welcome to The Journey, a show where we profile prominent members of our community. Today on our show, we continue talking about the journey of Penny Lebyane. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
It was good having you last week, and our viewers have been looking forward to having you this week once more. You know, last week you spoke briefly about the confusion in the media and which drove you into depression, like personal space, the challenges that you experienced.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
I mean, nothing really prepares you for fame, especially if that's not what you're in pursuit of.
Okay.
You know, I was in pursuit of getting on radio, being a young person who is part of telling a story of of my generation. You know, I'm a young person coming out of a township. Freedom is here. You're given an opportunity to excel and do what you love. And I took that with both my hands. And I believe that, you know, when you work hard, you get rewarded. I believe in those basic values. And I got on radio. I was on Metro at 21, and I was doing well. I remember, but I wasn't aware. For me, I came from a family at that time. Actually, when I got my job at Metro, my dad got retrenched. So I automatically became a breadwinner. So for me, it was about looking after my family, putting my siblings through school, at the same time, being young and 22. And now, the celebrity dom or something like that in tabloid journalism was starting in the country, and I was writing for one of the biggest newspapers, City Press. I didn't realize that makes me an automatical, tabloid fooder. I didn't even know what that meant at the particular time because, again, I did not go to school for this.
Wow.
Wow. So I didn't study this. And then I'm not sitting thinking, oh, who's trying to bring me down? How this one is using me for that. I'm just doing my job, blindly so. If there's anything, I was like blindly I would walk into places and just be myself and do what I do, not realizing that I make news, I'm interesting, people find I'm content. I had no clue. I was just doing that.
Wow.
And interacting with people, and I have a conversation with you, and the next thing I read about a conversation, that became shocking to me because people who I considered my friends and things that I had conversations with them about my private life or things end up in newspapers. I didn't see myself as a celebrity. I had no idea of what that was about. And it didn't bother me until I was called a liability at work.
Wow.
Yes, and then I came across a a fax written on something so I was constantly misunderstood, misquoted, misconstrued. Like I had to learn what all these words mean so I can be able to explain to myself, like, okay, this is what it means. And there were very few people. There were people who were famous at the time, but they had not dealt head on with a lot of tabloids. So I would call myself one of the first generation guinea pigs of what tabloid journalism was in this country. And I was in a newsroom, so it didn't make sense to me. I'm on radio every day. I do television on Fridays. I'm in the Sunday paper on Sundays. So it was a big deal, but I didn't see it that way.
Wow.
So when I'm doing all of that and then I'm not advancing at my work, I'm being marginalized, I'm being overlooked for position, I'm treated differently, I started questioning myself. I started saying, what is wrong with me? And a lot of women who had been in a similar space, who had been on television and radio, when I started talking to them, they couldn't relate to what I was talking about. Everybody was telling me, no, Penny, you must relax. I'm like, relax for what? All I did was get dressed and go to an event and do my job and come back. You know what I mean? So now I started stopping doing certain things. I started saying, maybe I mustn't go to this place. Maybe I mustn't do this. Maybe I mustn't talk to this person. So slowly, a bit of me was dying. But as that was happening in public, I withdrew and I would sit at home all by myself, and I started reading. I started picking up like Jan Levensan. I started picking up the Bible, and slowly, like really interrogating certain things. But the biggest question that I had was, what is wrong with me? Why can't people just accept me for who I am? And the heartbreaking part was then those who were my friends, who I work closely with, a lot of males started saying, maybe we should deal with this guy, And then my parents were like, maybe we need to take you to an inyanga. You need to be covered. Now, that's when the alarms started. The alarms started because then it became, something is really wrong with me.
Absolutely.
You know? So then it became, then I started looking for this thing is wrong with me. And then, obviously, then my family started running around. They must take me to this Inyanga, I must do this. And then my life is spiraling out of control, By the grace of God, I was not into alcohol, which can lead to drugs in the industry and all sorts of things. So I never got caught up in that, because when people are in the situation where I was in, the first thing they do is drink themselves up, is drink themselves. And once they drink themselves, then they get exposed to drugs and whatever. So I could be able to still function at work. So I could be able to go on air for 3 hours, do a show, whatever, even if I had one show, because I was not being promoted, I was losing favor with my bosses. So if I had one show, it would be the best one show that I have. And I did it with all my heart, And I would leave and I would go home. I could sit in my flat for the whole week, not eat, read through a book, cry myself to sleep, wake up, and then come to Friday and go to work. But now I didn't realize at the time that I was clinically depressed,
Okay.
Yeah. And the humiliation that came with that space, because of a particular public relationship, then the next thing I wanted was a rebound relationship that's going to prove to everybody that I'm also good enough.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Wow. So then I threw myself into a relationship. So that relationship became my outlet. So if this person said, you don't do this, I don't do it. But again, a part of me was continuously dying. So I'm trying to change who I am to become this person. Because remember, again, I don't have experience from being in high school, mastering how to handle the relationships. So now I'm becoming a pleaser in this relationship. I'm not being myself. And, as things would happen, I'm pregnant, I have my son. So now when I'm pregnant with my son, then my new energy became, if God can trust me with this child, I'm sure I can be able to survive this whole thing. Absolutely. So now that became, while I had my son and I have postnatal depression after my son, and I'm diagnosed with puerperal psychosis, which just happens to like 1 in 1,000. And this comes from me really fighting to say, now I've discovered that, you come from there's ancestral worship in your family, you need to be delivered from all of these things. So now I'm really digging and going into places spiritually that my parents have never been to, not a lot of people in my space have been to. So now I'm saying things that people haven't heard. So now it really, really, really means I've gone crazy.
Well, I can imagine.
Yeah, because now I'm saying, I want nothing to do with this, I want nothing to do with this, and then I'm gonna cut off a spirit of this and a spirit of that, and my child this and this, and I'm going to do everything in my power to protect my child. There will be no razor that comes onto my, you know what I mean? So now I can, they're like, you see, these people who go to church and these strange churches of yours that you're going to, now you've really lost your mind. But I'm so determined that I am going to break through out of this. I'm praying like I've never prayed before. I'm reading books, from T.D. Jakes to, Chris Ayakolome to David Ayadepo, so I'm reading everything.
Absolutely.
So I'm feeling myself, and then again it becomes, see, reading too much is a problem. It's going to drive you crazy. You know what I mean? So they keep saying this stuff. So when I had my son and I got hospitalized, I realized that when you have a gift and you are spirit-filled and you are in a space like this, there's all sorts of energies that are going on, you need to come to a place of understanding of what your gift is and how sometimes that can be misunderstood by families of people who are very gifted. The next off-ramp, you're told that I grew up watching my aunts and cousins, and I know the pain of what ancestral worshiping has caused. And I chose that I'm not going to go through that route. My own mother didn't do that. Do you understand? My aunt who raised me came from the same experience in the family. So I didn't hear about it. So no one could tell me. I could tell my grandmother, me, I'm not going to come worship you when you have passed on. I'm gonna buy you everything now.
Yeah.
And then they were like, what is this child talking about? But because remember, these are things I grew up being exposed to. And it was not second-hand information for me. So I could tell them that I know this is what happened. It didn't do that for my uncle. I could be able to, and they're like, how do you remember all these things you were a child? Because I was like, because I was present, And then when I prayed about it, I could recall these things. So I was very adamant that I'm not going down that route and it's not gonna take me anywhere. And then because of my depression, then I understood psychology, then I understood ancestral worship, then I understood pressure of media, then I could be able to explain what is happening to me. And the more I explained, the more everybody thought,
something wrong with
it. So I just said, guys, this is what the Holy Spirit does. It makes you understand things in ways that other people don't.
Absolutely.
And that's my position.
Powerful, powerful. I'll be in conversation with Penny Lebyane, and we're going to take a music break. And when we come back, more about the journey of Penny. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now remember, my brother and sister, God has special plans for you. I just know that after this program, after this show, you will learn one or two things from the life of Penny. There's nothing wrong with you. You just have to focus on Jesus. My sister, now, where are you currently spiritually and career-wise?
Okay, career-wise, I'm currently, the co-host of Sunrise Daily, Monday to Friday. I came to a place in my life where, I get into a show and I ask myself, God, why am I here? What do you want me to do? So after all of that I had experienced at Metro and other places, when I got to Motswako, it became about, what does God want to do through me? So I get to a show, they can tell me, this is a show that we would like you to host. And I'm like, okay, Lord, what do you want to achieve with this show? What is the challenge with the show? How do you want this show to impact this nation? And God speaks to me about it. And I follow through that. Like little things, like little big things. Like when I got to Motswako, for example, God spoke to me about, I shouldn't wear pants on the show because femininity needs to resonate through me.
Wow.
And someone will say, what difference does it make? Because there's a certain masculinity that you carry when you wear pants on a television, and at the things like, people watch the show, they felt that it had no depth. It can be very superficial because the women looked a certain way, they had a hair that a particular way, and then I had to have my hair a particular way. And then it was like, what's happening on the show? But at the same time, God was transforming me, because I came from a space where I was very protective of myself and I had no sense of femininity. So if I'm going to be doing a show like that, I needed to be very feminine. And then I had been rejected for that show because people felt that I could not be able to speak an African language because they had a perception about me. And then when I got there, I was able to do a show in Sepedi. And then I did the show in Sepedi, and it elevated me to a place that I never thought that I could. And it did very well, more than it had ever done in the history of the show. And it's because I prayed about it. I would pray about it, I would fast about it, and so there's no topic that I would go on air that I would have not consulted, spiritually about it. And it was a lot of work, because you're constantly, you see, there's what the channel wants to do, there's what the producer wants to do, there's what the spirit is, at the same time, you're not sure how to submit to the spirit at that particular time, so you can, because ultimately you will say something which you're thinking, people will think it's you, but it's what the Holy Spirit is saying. And then the channel wants that and this, and then somehow it's got to find a way to work. So that's career-wise how the approach that I kind of took. In a similar space on Sunrise, I came to a place of realizing that it's not about me. It's about what God wants to do, because this is a platform. When you're in television, it's a platform. When you're in radio, it's a platform. When you're given an ability to write and stand in front of people, it's a platform, and it comes with a lot of responsibility. So learning to submit my work and what I do through that. It's been hard, because you have to totally trust and rely on God. That's my career-wise. Spiritually, it's a constant journey. Really, it is. It's a constant journey. I did not have the confidence before to speak about, my spiritual understanding 3-4 years ago, as much as with the same conviction that I have now. And the beauty of it as well is that, I've fellowship at a few ministries. I've been to Grace Bible Church in Soweto. I have been to Rock of Victory, which is like a deliverance ministry. I've been to Rivers. And each time when I went there, I would ask God, what is it that you're teaching me at that particular time? And the things that God taught me then, until this year, when I went to go visit Assemblies of God, which, remember, I never fellowshipped at my entire life besides when I was sick. And God said, I'm taking you full circle.
Wow.
Everything else that you've gone through was preparing you for this moment.
Wow.
And I for me, being in a ministry is about, there's worship, there's the fellowship, there's different elements that you're constantly looking for. And I was able to connect to that when I got to AOG this year, because at one particular place I felt, okay, I'm not feeling the flow of the Spirit this way. I'm not feeling the worship this way. Sometimes the worship is, you know what I mean? And then what you don't realize that throughout that whole time, you're being prepared. You know, so now I'm at, my spiritual relationship, I would say, I've come to accept that God is always up to something, and things always work out for the good. You know, sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't get it, as long as I know that God is God and I'm not God. And constantly, every day, praying to be led, asking to learn how to submit, to open my eyes and ears of the Spirit, to be humble enough to know that when I'm on television, I'm just a vessel, I'm just working. And then if I'm standing in front of people, I'm just doing that. And then when I come off, you know, that it's work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's what God.
You know what I've really enjoyed about your understanding the relationship between your work and spirituality, because I think many times when we
separate.
We separate. Yeah. You say, this is my job, and this is not ministry. I really love that. If we can learn to find a link between our work as well as our assignment from above.
Yes.
Now, your last words. What would you say to somebody specifically who is in the rural area, who is raised in the rural area, and this person is trying to find their assignment, or they are concerned about where their lives would turn out to be? What would be your words to them?
I would say that it's not about where you're born, and, you know, trust in a God of small beginnings. An oak tree is a seed before it's an oak tree. Everything that you see started small. You know, it's not about the big things. It's about being faithful with the small things that God have given you. And being born in a village gives you a better perspective than a lot of people who are, you know, when you're born and you open a tap, you think water comes from a tap. But when you're born in a village, you know that you get a bucket and you go to the well and you fetch water in a well. And that during the dry season when there's no water, if you saved water in a drum, you can be able to boil that water and use it. Now, if that, for me, does not make you realize that you have a wealth of knowledge that a lot of people who could have read and have like some of the most accolades in the world, but they miss some of the simple things. God is so simple, yet he's so magnificent.
Wow, powerful. In other words, do not despise days of humble beginnings. God is busy with you. Thank you very much, my sister. We really honored having you on our program today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to our viewers. God bless you. Till we meet next week. Bless you.